Who is a stranger that you will always remember? An old man at a bus stop with an oxygen tank. He told me to quit smoking because, do you have any idea how hard it is to pick up chicks when you have to carry around an oxygen tank? That dude on the cruise. We were sitting at the bar making small talk. Asked him where he was from and he said, Jupiter. I was like, welp. He's fucking nuts. And I just walked away mid-conversation. Found out years later that Jupiter, Florida is a real place and I was the asshole. I was visiting my wife's grave when a woman arrived with a little girl. The little girl passed by, stopped and asked me who I was visiting. I told her my wife. I'm visiting my nana, she said. When you feel sad, just remember the fun things. That's what I do. Quote, I was driving from Texas to NY while I was in college. At about the halfway point, I passed a beautiful blonde woman in a white convertible. Suddenly she flew past me, waved, then slowed down. We passed each other back and forth for miles, making faces at each other and laughing. The highway split and we realized we were going in different directions. She blew me a kiss and floored it. Won't ever forget her. When I was somewhere around my mid-20s, there was a group of women that I used to see out at a local bar every once in a while. It was a group of office workers that would get together once a month or however often and have some drinks together after work. I was usually out with a group of guys that I used to hang out with all the time back then. We saw each other out enough that we all had started chatting some and we would occasionally buy them a round of drinks or they would send us one. But that was the extent of it for a while. They were just casual strangers that we were friendly towards. Well, one night we ran into them and they were going out that night. One of the ladies were leaving to move out of state and they were all going to get wild for her last night out with them. In the way that office workers do. We invited him to go out with us and it turned into a long night of bar hopping, drinking and good times. One of the office workers was about our age. A little younger than the rest of the ladies and very, very pretty. About halfway through the night she came and sat by me and kinda stayed in my vicinity as the group hangout started losing people as the night went on. I am pretty oblivious. But apparently she was hitting on me and everyone else noticed because suddenly the last few people all got up and left the two of us alone. We ended up hanging out for a few more hours and then went back to my house where we hung out until sometime the next day. We had a great time and we went our separate ways without exchanging numbers. I don't know why we didn't. But we didn't. A few weeks later I walked into work and my boss tells me, some girl has been calling here every day looking for you. But I forgot what she said her name was. At the time I had no idea who would be calling my job looking for me. But later that night during my shift she called again and it was office girl. She explained that the last time they had their monthly after work girls' night at the bar I wasn't there and neither were any of my friends. She was worried that we might not run into each other again and she remembered where I said I bartended. She didn't want to call at first and said she was embarrassed about it but that she really wanted to hang out again and figured that she would feel worse if we didn't speak again than she would about embarrassing herself by calling. I got her number and asked her if I could call her later when it slowed down. That night I called her back and we talked for a while. We both agreed that we had a blast hanging out together and seemed to have a really good connection. And that we both wanted to hang out again. I was super into her and at that point it seemed obvious, even to me, that she was super into me. We both talked about hanging out again and agreed that once we got through the weekend we were going to have dinner the beginning of next week. which never happened because a hurricane hit and destroyed the city. My whole house got destroyed, so I didn't even go back to my hometown until a year later, and I didn't have a phone at all for 2 months after, and when I finally did, it was a brand new phone number. So we never spoke again. And neither of us even knew enough about the other to have any idea how to track down the other. I found out later on that she did call the bar at some point looking for me. But at that time they didn't know how to contact me. She left a number for me to call her. But she had lost her house in the hurricane too, so she was still moving around trying to set up her life again. By the time I got the message, the number was not active. That will always stick with me as one of life's big what-ifs. I was a lil kiddo. And my dad was in line with me to purchase some things. A guy, around his 40s or 50s, is in front of us and sees me. He notices, if I remember correctly, my shirt and it had Batman. He asked, "Hey, you know Batman's theme song?" Quote, I didn't know he had one. So I shook my head. He then started, "Batman. Banananananana. Batman." Quote, I smiled a lot. And sang with him. He even told me that Banana was his last name. I refuse to think otherwise now. What a cool guy. The co-worker who gave me a cross-stitching of my favorite characters for a Secret Santa. I do not remember her name, but that is hands down the most heartfelt gift I have ever been given.